Welcome, everybody. Today we're going to be talking about manifestation and the teachings of Neville Goddard in part. And then we see where else the conversation will take us. Austin, how are you today?
Good. Happy Saturday. Just working a lot and doing some of this manifestation stuff. I think like a lot of I guess like in Los Angeles, manifestation, everybody's talking about it and it's almost a super cliche kind of Oprah Winfrey secret, kind of has this sort of kind of almost like a religion now type of thing, you know. Did I manifest this? I manifested that. And it's kind of like one of those things now, right? It's like a mainstream thing. But the real manifestation though too is like really our lives too. Like this is kind of the work, it's a reflection. Like more and more people are realizing that is a reflection of our lives are a reflection of how we are internally. And that's what a lot of people don't want to do the work for, because it's the hardest work you can ever do. So if you keep attracting the same things in your life, the same people, if you're in bad relationships and you keep, why does this happen to me? Because you keep creating that. That's what you don't know. None of us know that. None of us are born with that. We're born with programming, from whatever. If you're born, from parents who are religious, they install these programs into you that they think are right, and you keep attracting these same things, traumas or whatever. These are all powerful things that keep each individual enslaved to their own lives in a weird way, and we keep why does this happen to me? Why do these cycles keep happening? And it's like you are, in a sense, manifesting it. And things aren't necessarily happening to you without your permission, even if you don't want them to happen. Your subconscious and everything is on these programs, and the outside world is just mirroring what you are doing internally in your subconscious and what you're thinking of, your thoughts. So we're really that powerful, which is the good and the bad news. And then then there's that level, like on a personal level. And then at a bigger level, you're watching the news all week and you're manifesting. And then there's a collective manifestation, right? That we're all, and that's essentially what prayer is. It's like religions are like a creation, and, we're sitting down and praying, and we're praying. And that's why prayer is also so powerful, because it actually does work. When people are lined up, when they're not, doing negative things and stuff, and they're sitting there and praying, and somebody's healed or it helps them heal in the hospital, and a group of people are praying. That's legitimate stuff. That's real. Is that happening directly from a divine thing, or yes, and all of that as well? It's like, and then same with the bad people. The everybody's now all talking about the occult and the Satanists and all this stuff. And like they're conjuring up, and they're doing their ceremonies and black arts and conjuring up things in their lives or casting spells. That's just as real, So it's like we're all doing this. We're all very much involved in this, even if we don't want to be. Each at an individual level, we're very much heavily involved in this. As a collective, and then at an individual level. So these things I'm more understanding more and more, and that the thing is, it takes some work and some discipline to stop, kind of cut out some of these things, right? The dopamine addiction stuff, the cell phone, and it's easy to get in these slumps, and you almost, when you're aware of it, you really become aware of it. Okay, I could really be creating a much better life for myself, but I'm kind of in this comfortable, not too good, kind of mediocre ship, right? And a lot of people get stuck in that because it takes work to sit down and start writing out, what the heck do you even want? Do you even know what you want? Do you want a family? Do you want a house? Do you want to so most people are just letting life or other people's idea of what life should be for you pull them in these directions. And so then they never have a chance to really actually figure out what the heck they are, what they want in their life. So that's kind of what I've been working on, on top of the 9-to-5 job, and just doing these things is filling my time in with productivity and positive things, so I can start to change that reality that I'm in, for my outside environment to more reflect how I guess no, I'm changing internally more my life, cleaning up my life, cleaning up things on the inside, my mind, what comes in my mind, things from the past. It's like you can be completely dominated by the past and always be talking about the past and always be talking about the negative triggers. You are that powerful, and you creating these things, and these things keep showing up. So, for example, what happened, the other day, I'll just share, this is just an example, seeing thinking in my mind about, 2 days before the event happened, about spider webs, and I live in here, Peru, in the jungle, and I actually, surprisingly, never ran into spider webs or even see spiders or anything, like barely. And we're in Southern California, tons of spider webs, always running in those things there for some reason. Like, the dew, I don't know if they just love it's dry climate, it's just great for them there. But here I never, and then for years, I lived here 4 or 5 years, never ran into like spiders like that. Freaking 2 days later, I wake up in the morning, Monday morning for work. I go to the kitchen and I get tangled in a spider web for like 30 seconds to a minute. And I just knew exactly what I had just created. And it's like, well, okay, that's kind of funny, right? And kind of weird and maybe just a coincidence. Well, no, you know what I mean? I believe we're that powerful. We really are creating these things. And it's just showing me that, hey, if you can create that scenario, why not create $1 million? Or why not create a house? Or why not create a legacy or a business and start creating that? So this is what I was telling you earlier, Florian, like when I was, 15, 16, living in the closet on a pulled down, mattress, in the house I live, just like, 16 years old, you want to be in a different situations, right? And it wasn't terrible. It was just kind of like I knew I wanted to be out there doing other things, rather than my parents' house, right? In that room, and just I'd put on music, and I was imagining driving around in a nice big car with chicks and stuff, and just really living life. And a year, and I was just doing that night after night, imagine, and then it just totally happened, like almost exactly how I was imagining it, and didn't know what I was doing though. I didn't know that was manifestation, or I didn't know that was creating your own life, But it starts from imagination. It's just so incredible how powerful that is. So then you start to see that's how the world's being manipulated through all these ways, through religion, right or wrong, good or bad, through whatever, cartoons and like all this stuff. And you really start to, through music, like you were saying earlier, the reggaeton, the kind of heavy music that's being played, talking about, in the club and just heartbreak or cheat, whatever, all that stuff. It's very powerful. Those are very powerful spelling, words, casting spells. It's all, the English language is very powerful as well. The way the letters, it's just like, it's incredible. And then it all links up with the months and all this stuff. Even the astrology, I think, like there is some sort of destiny there that's all intertwined in all this. But even aside from all that, at a very individual level, we can start to control more what is coming in to our minds, or at least what we're giving power to, and this is very extremely important, and kind of in a more concrete, grounded way. That's like, oh, that's really prayer. Oh, that's really like, okay, we are more in control of our destinies and stuff than what we originally were taught. Like that life just happens to you, shady things happen to you. It's just, well, that sucks. You got dealt a bad set of cards. People say you're casting spells each time. Your parents, your parents they always said that, oh, we don't have the money for this. Oh, we're poor. Dude, you keep saying that. You keep casting that spell over and over again. And then you go to church, and then the stuff I'm talking about is crazy and dark. It's like, what? No, that is crazy and dark. Keep creating the same poverty and mindset, and so that's what I'm working on and starting to really have it all on lock. I'm getting there. I mean, I guess the things that I'm changing are incredible. From where I've been.
Yes.
in the year, right? And not so many years ago. So
Completely.
yeah, so that's kind of it, man. Does that make sense? Or I know you have some things to say about that.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And yeah, I always like to bring it back to the psychological aspect to that. So whatever we feel familiar with, that's what we tend to accept. And it's like the reality that we accept is what we unconsciously manifest again and again because we put up with it. In the
Right.
same way as, you know, some of the people that I'm working with, some were able to make a cut in a relationship or maybe in a work situation, which can mean to leave that workplace, but it can also mean to just set the boundaries and have a real conversation confronting that with
Right.
the boss or with the particular person that
Right.
this is in relationship with.
Right.
And for some people that's easier to do, and for other people that's harder to do. And it's like, if we don't do that, then we accept that state again and again and again and
Yeah.
again. Like every
Right.
time when we are in this
Exactly.
situation, we kind of letting it pass.
Exactly. That's right.
And that's how it also manifests.
That's right. Yeah, that's
Right?
right. That's right. Yeah.
And so that also comes together with familiarity. Realizing that early on, me growing up, my parents did the best that they could, and they were very loving. They never abused me, never physically was I hit in any kind of way. But the house was always in disorder, in a way.
chaos.
With like things laying around everywhere, and I didn't even realize it so much because I was growing up in this environment,
Right.
and I realized how hard that was for me to not accept these types of circumstances,
Right,
to like
right.
confront things, to not put up with it.
Right.
In the same way as like early on with women, I was
Yeah.
just not able to confront that and to actually stand up for myself and say what I actually wanted and confront the situation of like, okay, let me put myself out there. Because I was accepting that type of reality of like feeling disempowered and like not knowing what to do and like, now I can't talk to her and it's like, I don't have anybody else that I can talk to about that. Let me just ignore that and go drink or whatever. I was accepting that. And through that acceptance, more of that is being manifested.
That's right. Exactly.
And so it's beautiful how Tony Robbins says that it's like we don't really get what we want.
what we are.
Yeah, that for sure. But we also get what we accept. It's like we get what we must have, not what we want. Like it has to be like a real must for us to say is like, no, this is not congruent anymore with who I am. Right? And then you have some people who have grown up in an environment where the family already had a certain standard, right? Talking about financially, for example, it's like when you have financially strong parents who are educated and savvy about that, they may recommend to you other choices of work and study than parents who don't have that understanding, right? So the family holds a certain standard. So does the group of friends, but certainly the immediate family initially.
Right.
And there's a certain standard of what is acceptable. And we manifest that because we confronted with the same type of people. It's like, whom do we accept in our circle of influence? How do we accept being treated? What do we accept in terms of nutrition, what we put in our body? What do we accept in terms of, even the amount of money that we make? Some people just have this wild entitlement to more money, and then if it's really congruent, they get paid that much.
That's right. Yeah, that's right. That's right.
Well, it's
That's
like
right. That's right.
if you say it confidently, it's like my service is $8,000 per month, and it is really congruent, and it has been done before, people will submit to that. It is so interesting. And I find it particularly interesting in terms of human interactions and life circumstances because, looking around here also, like people are used to these circumstances, so they accept them, they put them up.
They don't even know what a lot of people in poverty, they don't even know what is like outside. They think chaos and just like disorder is normal, and they don't see that is not like good for a person to grow. Right. And it's not like a good situation when you and there's different levels to that, of course, but like there's also a standard that each human being, I think, deserves to be able to at least thrive a little bit, and they don't need to be living in just complete disorder, chaos, poverty like that. You're not gonna, because then those negative thoughts, and over years and years of validating that, it becomes very difficult to get out of that. Like that is a prison that you were born into, like a monkey cage at the zoo. And those monkeys that were born in that cage have no idea what is that, that there's a forest out there or a jungle out there. They have no idea, zero. So that's what we're dealing with in these situations. And I've tried letting people know too, like who are living in these situations, and sometimes they look at you like this, like they have no idea what you're talking about. That there's maybe a better way to live, or you don't have to live like that.
And it comes back to identity of like, okay, yes, there are people who live in harmony and in abundance, but that's not me. Right? That's the thinking.
Right.
Of like, yes, I've seen that on TV. I've seen that maybe the rich people on the other side of town, but that's not me. And that comes back to reality.
Sure.
And that's why, exactly what you've been saying with the music and the telenovelas, where it's like all dramas, like we observe. I don't know if that is really true. Probably some scientists, maybe we can hit up Andrew Huberman at some point about that. But like I do think the concept of mirror neurons, of like we feel internally what we observe, and if we observe the behaviors of other people, even in those telenovelas where it's all about drama, it's not the beautiful interaction of how you can actually interact is not being displayed.
No.
And so you're observing the drama and you're feeling that inside, and it's so present, it's so in the forefront of your mind that next time a situation happens where drama could be triggered, which is basically any situation. Like if you want to find drama, you can make it out of any situation. Right? Is that not true?
Yeah, of course.
Right?
Yeah.
And then it's like in the forefront of your mind. So I'm like, watching the TV shows here, sometimes in like a coffee shop, it's like on in the background. I'm like, this is horrible. It's like these people, they behave like idiots.
Well, and also like that's not just here in Peru, not to just trash Peru, because like the telenovela things is very big, but those same telenovelas is like soap opera in American terms, soap opera. So those same soap operas are in the United States as well. Just there's every nail salon's looking at the same. They're doing that same. And then on the flip side, there's all these movies that come up with hyper masculinity, like that's impossible for most men to even reach. And then it teaches you that if you're not some sort of superhero or whatever, and I don't know how it is now. It's changing. It's just all completely weird. Superhero, woke, whatever, even more strange. But then there's that, and then people are seeing violence, extreme violence, which is getting into the, so you see shootings and all that stuff. Whether that's there's deeper plots to that, I'm sure, but like, whatever. It's still not good. It's just seeing violent movie after movie, which is in the United States, and that creates people who are just very violent and reactionary as well. So that's happening at the same time as here. So that's happening all over, and there used to be standards, back in the 80s and stuff, and I used to think, oh my God, they were so dominated, it's like a dictatorship. Well, actually, I see why those standards had that. They didn't want people being subjected to, naked people on TV or all these violence. So like they had these commissions in Hollywood and stuff that, in order for a movie to get put on, they had to go through these commissions. I think that would be good again, and it's like, and then the government of Peru, it's so obvious why because all these TV shows are linked up with the government. Like the government puts in certain things, certain agendas in there, right? In those TV shows for other countries show their influence in there, whether it's, I see American, I see Chinese influence, and Al Fondo hay Sitio, that's like one of the biggest Peruvian TV shows. Millions of people watch it every day, and it's so dramatic, and it has all this stuff, but there's these subtle ideas. For example, my wife was watching one yesterday, and then all of a sudden the guy is dressed up like a woman, and he's got an afro on. I've never seen, this is like kind of the more masculine supposed guy in the show. He's all dressed up like a woman, and you could just see in his face, he's just sold out, and it just sucks. And then millions of people watching that. There's an agenda behind that. They do that in America too with the black community. They're trying to control because millions. You think it's funny, think it's a joke. I don't even know why that's supposed to be that funny. It doesn't even make sense. Like it's not like oh wow, he's dressed up like a woman and dancing. It's not funny. I don't get it. But there's some sort of there's something there that's showing millions of people that hey, either that's okay or there's something there. You see what I mean? So I know we're getting into like a conspiracy conversation, but I guess going back to the manifestation, all this stuff, something is manifesting, and then like what I guess creates anger in me, and I can't help but sometimes be emotional or angry about it, is like how much better we can be doing as human beings. Like we're wasting so much time watching stuff that's like. Why not put videos of education? And the Peruvian government, they love this stuff because they want people, distracted, stupid, and not thinking about things because that are important because they want you just continuing the same cycle that benefits some of the people. And now I sound like a revolution, but some of these guys are totally correct. It's just benefiting a few people and they're manipulating things from behind the scenes. England is like one of the best. The BBC and stuff, they've been doing it forever. Some say they even control news events, and a lot of news events are just totally controlled and fake. I know you talk about that as well, and there definitely is. And then we're hearing this stuff, and we're all holding this up. We're holding the chessboard up, all of us, a slave. We're holding it up until we realize, hey, wait a second, is this really benefiting us? Or, we're the ones who are actually hold so much of the power and we don't even know it. But I get the scariness of that. It's scary because then you got to do something. Then you got to change. Oh, man, don't want to do that. That sucks. That's too much work,
Yeah, like you got to change. That's exactly the question. Like the more we become aware of all of these influences, it's like, yeah. I mean, we're all trying to influence each other in some kind of way. We go through life and we influence other people to get what we want, and some people go further in unethical ways, and some people don't, right? But like influence is basically it's part of life, right? That's how you manifest what you want, because like you can think it all day long, but unless other people agree to that, it won't be manifest.
So can you say that again?
I said like we go through life and we influence each other, and like we can think it all day long, but unless other people agree to that, it won't be manifest. Like you can say this is my house, but unless everybody in the neighborhood agrees and the public papers and the public registers agree, it won't be yours. So like there has to be a type of influence for the public acceptance of that. And so it's really the question is like how can we influence ourselves? How can we influence each other in a better way? And like part of that, as we said before, it's always easy to point outside and like get angry, and I do that too for sure. But on the other hand, it's like the hardest thing is to actually calm that anger and turn inwards and say it's like I'm gonna change that within myself. It's like and I know this so much for myself. That's why I didn't really get forward in my life, because I was very much externalizing that. I was taking responsibility to a certain degree in my life. But I was also pointing outside and like externalizing my anger and utilizing that just because it kind of made me feel good in a way, or like I had an outlet for this anger. But what I really should have been doing is like, sit down, do the work, and do the thing that I was avoiding. And so I was rather getting angry at everybody else. And not doing that. But yeah, definitely the good thing about that is people are becoming aware of that. And as you said, it's like, what's the line there? What is the line there, right? Should we have committees that check those movies? So like, I think, in the future, it will all play out in the right kind of way where people become more aware, and at some point, little by little, it will change. Where we find the right way between the personal responsibility of people saying, like, I really don't want to watch these movies anymore. And it doesn't have to be a certain type of movie, or like the telenovelas where you're like, okay, at some point, it doesn't really serve me anymore. It's like I need to allow better things into my mind that are constructive, and everybody can make the choice on their own, right? And then there's obviously the component of rules and regulations about it, and I think these two will come together at some point in the future. And they already are, aren't they? It's like things are changing, and
Yeah, I think they're changing, but I don't know. I mean, like in the United States, I mean, we see for these 4 years things might be changing that direction, but things can change like that.
Oh, sure.
You know, and then worldwide, I mean, you know, this kind of thing, whatever it is, the music, the just lower vibe music, I guess, the movies that are just clearly, you know, kind of strange and influent, like that has been exported to various parts of the world, you know, including here in Peru, like clearly, you know, and however, the amazing thing here in Peru is the culture is still very intact, thousand-of-year culture, which is very hard to destroy, you know, you can't really, and that is something that I love seeing, and, you know, even, you know, it's like, hey, it seems like a lot sometimes to me from my Western mind, you know, every month there's an anniversary, and every week sometimes, right? And there's like an excuse to party and hang out. But it's like, that's what they want to do. That's what they're creating, and that's what they're collectively doing, and that's fine, you know? And those who don't want to do that, you're making a decision to, like, you can not be a part of that, and, you know?
And celebration has always been part of, like, tribal societies in the beginning,
right,
to make people look forward to something. And even for us at the end of the weeks, like I'm doing this more intentionally to put things that I look forward to at the end of the week, so that I reach deeper into the resource that I have on like Thursday afternoon, Friday, when like the energy sometimes drops a little bit. I'm like, okay, I have this on Saturday, on Sunday, and I'm looking forward to that. And in tribal societies, it has been like that too. Whenever you do a big harvest or something, you do a feast, like a Thanksgiving after that.
Dude.
And like from a tribal perspective, like it helps people release, it helps people feel the emotions. So like, that is there, but it has to be matched up with the hard work. It can't just be all the celebration. And that's kind of part of the point that you were making of, like, you know, if you can have a party every week, then it's hard, and it comes back to personal responsibility to say no to that,
right,
and to actually put oneself through the hard work, although it doesn't have to be hard, it doesn't have to be strainful, it just needs to be done, right? And then still put a celebration at the end of that. And that comes back to the personal responsibility. I mean, like, yeah, other people want to influence us, companies want to influence us, maybe the government too, maybe other people, our family is like, it really starts oftentimes in the family, right? Of like people really putting influence. And to some degree it has to be done, and also from the government level, to some degree it has to be done. It's just like we are finding like the right way, and that's really what we're finding, right? Within our personal lives, of like, what's the right measure? What's the right measure of all of that? And that's not easy, and it has never been done before in history, right? Or maybe it has. I
think it has. Our history, we don't even know. I mean, you look at the architecture in Germany that was destroyed in the 40s, and you look at the architecture all around the world, Brazil and everywhere, you know, a magnificent marble built, you know. There was clearly a better thing going on. What they say was the Dark Ages. We don't know. We don't know that that's true. They might be lying to us, you know. So, you know, I mean, almost like empty cities that were just fully built. Yeah, very strange stuff, you know. San Francisco and like all the Chicago. It's just like, even New York. It was just like gigantic buildings, unreal architecture that like. I don't think we could replicate that. How did they build that in the 1800s? Cowboys and, you know, people just carrying sacks over the head. Like, it doesn't make sense. So anyway, that's a whole nother discussion that, you know, but yeah, anyway, I don't know. I mean, I was just listening to a Chinese college class yesterday. This guy, I think he's starting to get big on YouTube now, or just kind of, he just puts his classes out there. I think he's in Beijing, speaks completely in English on his classes. Very impressed. He was talking about power and exactly what you're saying with that, with like how, but like back in the day, even in China and stuff, like, so if somebody became wealthy, they would have a big feast for everybody, because like what was good for the wealthy person, they wanted the community to be, to benefit as well. So it wasn't just like where we've created this individualistic identity, in the Western thing, and that hasn't really served us. It has and it hasn't. And I think now there has to be some sort of fusion with that, because it's like so independent, you're so wealthy and you have all this stuff, and then you're depressed, and there's people having all these other issues, and it's like, I think those issues are what we kind of look at it as very foreign, cultural, everybody just hanging out and talking for hours, just too much, it's kind of annoying. But also the community aspect here that we kind of look at it would very much benefit,
Sure.
United States, Germany, in our individualistic mindset, right?
And the question is, absolutely. The question is, how do you make those rules? Do you leave it up to the individual? Do you have leaders who set the example? Do you make it mandatory from the point of the government, right?
Right.
What's the right line there?
Yeah, well, that I don't know, man. I mean, that is because I think it used to be like that. Like in America, there was culture, American culture, and in other areas more than others, right? Like there was, the South is kind of like here in Peru, like the South of the United States. People are very more country-like and just kind of more. There's probably more gossip, and it's a lot more family, and there's events and stuff. But then you go to the bigger city, and it's just so individual. Like, how do you change that? The government tells you, okay, everybody's got it. That's like dystopian. Everybody's got to meet up for a cultural event. That sounds scary, like sounds weird, right? It's like mandatory every Sunday, everybody's meeting. It sounds like 1984 George Orwell. So I don't know the answer to that. I think we've been definitely hijacked. These things, these black mirrors, these the social media and stuff. So we have culture now through social media. So people are still interacting, but it's like, is that the healthy thing that's going on? We're looking at everybody else's status, and we're looking at it and just, either envious or liking or arguing and stuff. So it's like, that's probably not the way to go. Probably opening up the markets again. People, grocery stores. Like you look at here, people go to the market. You walk and go to the market and you physically still buy the organic food that people grow, and you can buy it on the street, and every day the market's open. And that's a way for people to talk and communicate and get ideas. Oh, this is good for this ailment. This is good. So like people are still living very indigenous where we live here. It is very indigenous. It is indigenous. But it's like that could very well benefit, a country like the United States. I don't know how Germany is. Germany might be more like it is here. This I don't know. How is Germany with that?
In the countryside, exactly like you explained in the United States as well. It's more family, it's more close together, and it also comes together with, people have reunions, people work more with the simple goods, right, from they come from the soil and agriculture, etc. Then you have a big feast, and then like a pig or like a cow is being slaughtered, and everybody is being,
right.
Everybody celebrates like after a harvest or for a wedding or something. These practices are still going on in Germany, obviously. Right, it's like you have a big fest and like a big feast, and that also comes back to the personal responsibility, as you were just saying with the social media. That when you have these reunions, it can't just be about gossip, right?
Right.
But that's so easy to fall into.
Right.
So at some point we want to bridge the simplistic with the advanced of like
living
in a sophisticated way while still not neglecting the simplicity.
Yeah.
Right, and that's like the hard balance to find. And that's also everybody's responsibility. It's like we can live in a very sophisticated ways through social media. We can go live and put our ideas out there. We can immediately connect with anybody, and we can actually utilize that to nurture our relationships. Where we say it's like, okay, this person has just been back from holiday in the south of France. Let me send them like a quick text. You wouldn't know if you had to find that out through laborious research. Now, obviously, the flip side of that is you can get lost for like 3 hours and being sad and depleting your dopamine, but that's also a personal responsibility.
Yeah.
Like with a great tool come great challenges. Like with a hammer, you can only do so much. If you have a machine gun, it's different. If you have like other advanced technologies, it's like even more different. Like That's it. And so maybe we can have a part in this discussion of bridging the sophisticated and bridging the advanced. And maybe that's also my own limited point of view of thinking, like, we have figured out something advanced or sophisticated, but bridging that with the simple, right? Like with growing food, with the indigenous rites and rituals that we have here, without getting lost in
the survival.
In the
survival. A lot of
survival.
that is survival, the gossip and all that is survival. That's defense. I understand more and more why people are that way. There's almost no police, barely. So like everybody looks like everybody's like self-police. There's a lot of responsibility that's placed on people. At least here in Peru, we're talking. We're kind of going back and forth between Peru and the United States because we're Florian's German, I'm American, and we've lived in Peru, which is, for years now. And we're, so a lot of our conversations are kind of like that. We're trying to figure things out because there's pros and cons to both. There's times where I absolutely miss living in the United States. Getting in I talk about this a lot. It's like one thing that I really miss, getting in a big American car and just putting, maybe smoking a hit of weed, right? Not having to worry, just putting on the car, driving, put on my music. Like nothing better than that to me. Like not much. like that is like the best thing in the world. Driving in the sunset, putting the music, the rap music, whatever, going to the beat. Like, geez, like that was really like a paradise. I didn't realize how good it really was. You know what I mean? Until I'm in a different situation for years now here, and I haven't been able to enjoy that. But how am I able to enjoy that in the United States? Well, there's law, there's law and order in the streets. I can kind of drive. I can drive. I don't have to worry about people, as much, right? Not even to the same degree. I can kind of cruise. I can chill. The freeway systems are set up so I can go from the, 30 miles in 30 minutes and go drive to the beach from the mountains or whatever, whereas. So, and I can go to the store and I can go walk into the grocery store and I don't have to worry about fighting somebody on the price. Maybe the prices are higher than here. Okay, but that's the price of not having to beat people up and fight people for 50 cents. It's only 50 cents. Oh, maybe you have the money. But if you keep getting ripped off, they're going to tell other people, this gringo, we can just rip him off. So like there's this crazy fight that's here, survival in Peru that you have to deal with versus in the United States. You see what I mean? But it's like, but you can do that whole drive and be very independent and alone and kind of just like kind of in your own world and go and meet the person at the supermarket and just, hey, how's it going? Oh, good, that's great. Okay, great, bye. And have that conversation and never go deeper. And that was something that I was missing there, was kind of a depth with people. And whereas here, a little bit harder for us because, people are a little bit afraid of us and they're not, although we've met good people here, it's a little different. But if you're from here and you have that, you're sitting there, you can have a half an hour conversation with your godmother, that is the godmother of your child, and you have this deep, in-depth conversation about everything that's going on, blah, blah, blah. And and you go to the market, and so it's like a whole different time. They call it, this might be racist, but Indian time. It really exists here. It really 100% exists. It's a whole different time. It's almost as if the watch, the time doesn't, it exists in a different dimension here. Yeah. So those are just the main big differences. But the funny thing is, both, if somehow merging both of them would be so beneficial to Western culture, and then a little bit more of that kind of structure would be beneficial to here, to help kind of advance, because get people out of that survival a bit more and into more progress, because there's a lot of poverty, there's a lot of alcoholism, there's a lot of abuse, there's a lot of sexual abuse, there's a lot of things that I didn't realize before I came down here that were just really bad. That I thought, they got the life going. They're free. They don't have to worry about the police nitpicking at every stupid law. But you see what I mean? So I've come, I see the things that I was running away from the United States, running from the law. No, but a little bit of that, and just not wanting to coming here. I see both benefits now. And it's they're not really living better than us, and we're not necessarily living better than them. You see what I mean? That is what I see really going on here. And I don't know. That's just kind of the conclusion I've kind of come to after all of this,
Yeah, and that's beneficial for every country. That's why we do cultural exchanges. That's why, Australia has a program where a lot of, young people from Europe And I think the United States at this point can come to Australia if they're below 30 for like a year or two and get like an easy work visa. So there's a cultural exchange because a lot of people feel attracted to the beauty of the place and then they end up staying. And so also like a lot of Americans go to Europe like for just like a semester to study or like even in high school and they do a cultural exchange. And
some of them love Germany. Like they'll never go back like, oh my God, Germany's better. The school is cheap. I'm not. But you know, I'm sure after 5 years the conversation is different. You know, like there's things that you know.
And that is beneficial for anybody. And it's like, look, you know, with every good comes bad, and with every bad comes good, and like the coin always have two sides. And I think we got to also credit the governments for giving like students the opportunity for that. It's like obviously, you know, but there are good elements that you can definitely utilize.
Yeah.
Right. Sure, and so part of what we see here and what you've been talking about for years is you know, finding out what are the best parts, the most useful parts, or the most beautiful parts of both cultures, and kind of linking them together.
Right.
And one thought that came up as you were saying that is about Indian time. You know, I've traveled fairly like a few places in the world, at least like the most continents.
Thailand, you've been to Thailand and stuff, right? You tell me it was kind of similar to here. I've never been to. I've only been in America.
So outside of Africa, I've seen various places and also indigenous places, like talking about like the Pacific, the islands in the Pacific there, Fiji and Vanuatu, Thailand as well.
Very similar, right?
Very
it's not
similar.
just like Indian by Native American time. That's kind of like a Western. It's like American military would always, when they would go to the South American, they'd say Indian time. Like, this is a totally different, you know. So that's where that context comes from.
Definitely. And I just had this thought the other day, or like elaborating on that, I had this thought for a while that, you know, in Europe, so, okay, you may say there were populations in the Americas before Columbus arrived, etc. That might be an argument, but certainly the Americans of today are descendants from Europe, right?
Yeah, for sure.
And so...
Most,
exactly. Yes, to be accurate. Yeah, exactly. But... So I was thinking, like, in Europe you have this very particular situation that you have to really plan for the seasons, because otherwise you get wiped out by the intensity of the weather. And I've always realized that every place where I go where it was kind of nice and cozy and chill, that's where you see the difference between the United States and Mexico, for example, right? It's like in terms of work ethic, they take like a 2-hour siesta. Right?
That comes from Spain, though, which is
that does come
kind
from
of Europe, I guess. I don't know.
But it has the same climate. That's the point that I'm making.
That's interesting.
Right? That's exactly the point that I'm making.
Interesting.
Like even in Italy, in the south of France, like in Spain and in Portugal, you have these same type of habits.
That is interesting.
It's also kind of Indian time, and so I just can't fail to wonder whether that is just like a development over centuries and centuries and generations over generations, where the people who weren't able to focus and to log in and to utilize their mind in order to predict, to have the impulse control in order to not eat the food right now and ration it to make it through the winter, because the people who weren't able to do so, they got wiped out.
So there's a survival mechanism built in.
It's a survival mechanism, but the point that I was making is it seems to have been selecting for intelligence.
Right.
And for impulse control. And like both of these you need to succeed.
Wow, that's
And then like if you play that out over like centuries and generations, it's like bringing that back to manifestations, like we always get our standards. If we don't must, then we usually won't. Can you imagine how intense that is in Europe of like if you just make like a few tiny mistakes?
Or Russia, Russia's the same type of thing, and they advanced pretty quickly too,
Exactly, that's what I mean. Those northern European states, because the difference between Sweden and Spain is like it's such a harsh difference in terms of how people operate and how the mind has developed, how the mental capacities have developed.
Very interesting.
That's how we can also see like in Africa when there's when there's not the must that you need to do that because you can basically harvest and farm and hunt all year round, there is no need to develop your intelligence in that sense. But on the other hand, if you really have to ration and you have to make it go forward, it's like it's very interesting. And in my opinion, that's like also a cultural phenomenon, how this Indian time has been put to rest or put to bed, so to speak, in Europe, because you just couldn't afford it. If you were like that, if you were just casual and just enjoying life and the fruits of that and like right?
So it's a survival. So almost what you're saying, that's interesting. I've never thought about it like that. So like you're almost saying it's like a survival mechanism, even though the way I see people here are just surviving. So we are too in so many ways. As much as we're just, I mean, look at my schedule. 8 to 4:30 p.m. If I have a 15-minute break, and I need to go grab something down at the store, I gotta rush, and I'm in survival too. Because like if I don't get back on time, too many days like that, I could get fired essentially. You know what I mean? If I'm just like screwing that part off, because every second is looked at in my job. That's what's such a big difference between my job and people's job here. Even if you're in a higher up position here, you're not getting so. That is a form of survival. You know what I mean? Like, so people are very, as much as I judge, and I admit I judge people, just like they judge me, and stuff. But like sometimes I judge the society that I live here, and it's just like people are so stuck in the survival mentality. So, but so are we too. People look at the United States, they just are working all the time, and they're all stressed. Just kind of like. So not one is better than the other. I never want to like come across as that, like, as I know people can think that when it's easy to judge that when you're talking bad about, because there's people who might look at, these gringos are living, they're talking bad about Native Americans. I got to defend the natives. People have that. I'm not sure people who are listening or not, but like people have that mentality sometimes. But it's like it's not like that at all. Like we've earned our kind of say here in some sense. We've done a lot of work here. I've married into a family, and just like I can really see both sides very clearly. So in order to, and I had the same thing in the United States. I would say I thought the patriotism was so weird, and like certain things, like people are so brainwashed in the United States. People attacked me there a lot, as well. Just like I would talk about like what the heck, this government is crazy, and everybody's just so weird and brainwashed too. And people would attack me. Not everybody, but some people really would. Sometimes even physically, like people would get so, So that kind of thing. I don't know. That's just what I want to break. I don't even really care where we're at, or it's just like I feel like we need a new slate as humanity. like kind of like a reset. No, but almost. I don't know what Klaus Schwab is talking about. Klaus Schwab is exactly talking about with the Great Reset. But really, I kind of see a point in that. Like, we need like some sort of slight clean, because like it's just like all these. How do we figure out who we really are as humanity? Much less as an individual level, it's a bit easier to find out. But like also as a humanity, where are we at? Do we even know what direction we want to go as humanity? Do we even know what's up anymore? That's kind of what I'm saying. And I think just the more, how do you get to that? More people at an individual level start to, clean themselves and just kind of think through things. What have I been told my whole life that's just a lie? From the government, from the religion, from parents, from ourselves that we tell each other. That's kind of the thing that I'm trying to say, because I think we can do better, and we can create a much better world. And I'm not trying to sound like a hippie, and we all got to just hold hands and and maybe something like that. But I just see a lot of suffering still, unnecessary suffering. Super unnecessary in all levels of society, in all levels of poor or rich. I see poor people that suffer way less than rich people sometimes, because rich people are suffering. They got all the money, and they're slaves to their own status, and they have to continue. And they go to the party and they say something weird, and they think, you know what I mean, or their girlfriend doesn't really love them, because it's like you got issues too. And then I see poor people who are totally content and have just accepted where they're at too. So what is better than the other? I just think there's suffering in all levels that they're super unnecessary, that I would wish that we could kind of stop somehow. I don't know, but that's a big thing. That's a big goal, right? That
is a big goal, and it will require the help of the people. It's like, look, if the child wants to leave the parents' home, at some point it will be inevitable. Mm-hmm. If people are ready to wake up, then at some point we gotta people will take a little bit more of the responsibility into their own hands, mm-hmm. and then a bit more, little by little, will be given, and it will be challenging. It will be like a lot of discussion, will be like a lot of discourse,
right?
And And on the other hand, it's also the part that, you know, if people are very immature, like you gotta set boundaries, you gotta control them, right? In a certain kind of way, you gotta put them in their place in a certain type of way.
Yeah.
But on the other hand, yeah, you know, we've been talking about this a lot. Has it gone so far or like not? But what I always bring that back to is like, you know, peaceful self responsibility of like, okay, you know, we can make the change for our own families, and then from that, opportunities will arise to speak to more and more people, and then more and more people will listen, because after all, it all comes down to influence. And so we are seeing something that is very interesting and probably also scary to the authorities, that like streamers, for example, or YouTubers are getting tremendous influence over people.
Like some of them are billionaires.
Yeah.
That's crazy, man.
Yeah.
Crazy.
And that's because, yeah, they're closer to the audiences.
Right.
And it's also the people, through, thanks to social media, we have seen so much that we can really have an accurate understanding of what actually is possible. Maybe not for us, maybe yes, but certainly what can be, and then how leaders can actually look like and sound like and feel like, and what they have done and not done. So people really have a real comparison of leaders who have made themselves through the marketplace. Right, by earning an audience. No audience on social media is given, but it is an audience, and it is a powerful audience. Right, it's a powerful way of influencing oftentimes millions of people, and so we will just see how that plays out. Each one taking responsibility and changing these things within oneself, right? Because oftentimes, like, yeah, even like with conflicts on like a geopolitical level, it's like we get what we accept.
Yeah.
You know, when we accept conflicts within ourselves.
Yeah.
It makes sense that we also think that we need to fight others.
Yeah.
And it's not so black and white. You can't just say it's like let's sink all of the guns into the ocean. That's also
I know.
That's also not it. So what will be, we don't know, but we continue talking about this every week and see if at some point some more people will listen.
Right.
And then we see if we can just at least start here in like a small way. Because what I've also realized, like just in this tiny little town of 20,000 people, is like, I think until I'm like 50 or 60, I gotta be busy, like at least like making some changes here, and then I can go out to like other places and the world potentially eventually, if it's meant to be. But like there's a lot to do here, and people change slowly, and we will see. And there's also like a natural current of the flow of events and how things are going, and it seems that we're in alignment with that. And so yeah, we will see. I can just say that it's a good path, and it's a worthy path of taking responsibility for these things, so much so that at some point we've really addressed all of the points that we have to address within ourselves, and then just the natural next steps to take responsibility for other people. Right. But not from a place of emptiness, not from a place of wanting to get something. Right. So you're just being selective with the responsibilities that you take from other people, because that gives you some kind of influence over the others. And I have done that. I've been very manipulative. That was part of what I shared before, that, you know, I wasn't taught to confront things. So I thought the way to get what I want is through manipulation.
Right.
And so to overcome that, and in the same way as you said, of like thinking about the past, and then the past comes back.
Right.
That time of past comes back to me too, especially when I'm stressed, especially when I'm like feeling tired. It's usually under stress where people are really tested, right? Tony Robbins says this in a beautiful way. It's like, what do you default to when you're stressed? It's like, what shows up then when you're really feeling like out of control, when you're really feeling stressed? This is like when the real patterns are showing up, right?
The real test, the real you almost shows up. I mean, it's not like
not the real you,
but it
like,
kind of is. That you is still there.
The hard patterns show up of like, how do you behave when things get tough? And yeah, so it's good that we're all finding that out right now, right? Just as I said before with the Indian time, that in Europe people were basically through self-selection, or like through survival selection pressures, being incentivized of developing these higher capacities of intelligence and impulse control.
Yeah.
And so if you play that out over like hundreds and hundreds of years and multiple generations, like you get a heads up. In the same way as if I do things differently like somebody else, and we both start at age 30, and like, rather the other person does things differently and maybe more intelligently than me, with more effort, like with more intention, in a more intelligent way with more leverage. If you play that out over the next 40 years, it will be like a whole different direction. And so in the same way, if you play that out when things are chill and easy, like you can basically farm and hunt all year round, like Portugal and Spain mostly, or you have these very harsh survival pressures of like, you know, Germany, even Sweden, even worse, or like Ireland, of like, okay, if you don't make it this season, then goodbye, right? Then you've made it so far 37 years, but then it's over.
Yeah.
It's like every year it's like it's a test anew.
Yeah.
And that really pushes you to develop these capacities, because you almost have to be like obsessive when there's summertime of like, okay, how do I not fuck this up this time? How am I smarter? How do I get...
Wow.
And so with this type of thinking, obviously, if you play that out over hundreds of years, you can have an advantage over African people, over you know, Southern Europe people. And it's like, well, yeah, intelligent is it's a great responsibility of doing something useful with that. That's probably what we come down to. Well, like what we come back to, it probably has been necessary for us to have had these external pressures, because we weren't really mature enough to govern ourselves. Maybe now we are. Who knows? But probably little by little, it is shifting in that way, at least that it seems to me, and it also seems to be inevitable. And so we just have to give time until people are ready, and then yeah, things may change, right?
Yeah, and that, you know, it's not to say like, because like if we're in that situation too, and what Florian's saying is like, for those of you who are thinking, oh, you're saying that Europeans or something are better than the rest of the world. That's not what he's saying at all. What he's saying is like these actually makes a lot of sense. Like that these, you know, because it's like the Incan Empire here. This is pre-Spanish. We see the remnants of that here, just completely ever. There's a gigantic civilization with farming and agriculture going on. But that was like 1,000 years ago. That was pre the colony. Like, you know, there's so it's very interesting what he's saying, because it's like it seems like they're depending on what year or what century it is. There's different people who are in these certain parts of the world that attract that, or that have this hunting and gathering, or they have agricultural, or like Egypt blows everybody out. You know, Egypt is crazy what was going on there, but now it's all desert. So, but I don't know. I think that's very interesting what you were saying with that. Like, yeah, it kind of different your environment, and now. Like in the United States, there's so many people addicted to drugs, and you have everything. You don't need to even have any hunting, gathering, or agriculture, or worry about anything. And people are losing their drive completely, you know. And like, just, like maybe they're looking at their watches, but they're definitely not using their time or using these gifts very well. So, and I think that just happens over generations. People create, you know, it happened in Rome, it happened in probably all these civilizations where things, you know, built up, and then everything was there for the next generations, and the next generations just kind of, they didn't expand upon it, or they lose it, you know. So that's why you see these civilizations go and come and go and stuff, and then a colony from Europe comes in and dominates, you know. It's like, how does that happen? I think it's something like that. And we in our modern day and age, we are holding this in some way. We're like holding all of this, all of our ancestors that go back. It's almost like we are holding a lot in some way, and then you hold even more when you're more aware of it, and you're like, oh my goodness, this is a big weight, you know, that I'm alive due to who knows how many different generations and like. You know, it's just absolutely incredible to think of, and what a gift and all that stuff is. Not to put so much pressure on yourself that you're just like, oh my gosh, if I don't succeed, and I can relate to that, and Florian probably can too. You know, we have some people more than others have a weight on them to succeed and want to make their ancestors proud or something like that, or make ourselves proud and just like and succeed and make all of that work, going through all this stuff, famines or whatever, worthwhile, you know, in some sort of way. But maybe we're overthinking it too. And maybe it's just we also are here to enjoy life and just, you know, be disciplined and not take it so serious and still enjoy the life. because that's the other thing that sometimes we tend to forget. In this world, it's like, oh, we just you earn, but you have to earn that. Like I feel like whenever I'm feeling kind of joking and just like myself and relaxed, I earned that through a lot of difficulty. Through a lot of winters, through a lot of dark winters, through a lot of fighting, through a lot of just work, straight up work and stuff, and self inner work, physical work, all this stuff to kind of gain this this ability to sort of actually enjoy life, and that's not easy. That comes, but if it can come easy to you, then great, even better. Like it's, but everybody, but then there's some people who might be like, oh, enjoying the life, and then they might envy that difficulty. You know what I mean? There's some people who want that difficulty, and they want to help them grow. So it's like that's part of it too. And so anyway, I think it's been a great episode, man. We've covered a lot of stuff.
Definitely, and I think that is such a great closing thought that you brought up of enjoying life too. I just wanted to thank you as well for pointing that out. It was an inclusive comment that I made, not an exclusive comment, in the sense of like the comparison between Europe and Africa. What I was getting to was, if it's a must, then you will. If it's a must, then the people will. If it's a must, then the society will make it through the winter, even if not everybody else makes it. And so if in the Southern Europe, South America, to Africa, it hasn't been a must, then it is just understandable that from a societal comparison perspective, things have played out over the centuries in a different way. But what it comes down to today is, if we really want, you can make it a must for yourself. And you can play that same game of like putting yourself on the line to the way where it's like really do it or die, like it was in Europe in the wintertime. It sounds very harsh, but in order to really break these generational challenges, sometimes that's what's necessary. And so I can confidently say this now, from Europe, but I'm now living here in Peru, in a third world country where there's a lot of poverty, and even going further into the jungle, there's even more poverty. So I can confidently say, wherever you are, whether it's in some island in the Pacific or in Africa or here, there's always a way if it's a must. A suit and a tie and a cheap mobile phone which has access to the internet and a phone chip is available to anybody who wants to. Even if it's the most rural parts of Peru or the most rural parts of Africa, you can find a way to work yourself up. You can find a way to set foot in a bigger city and get access to all of these resources and the technology and like a cheap suit from a thrift store. And even if the suit is cheap but you carry yourself with pride, it will make an effect. And so that's the point that I'm making. If it really is a must, it can be done. And so all I was saying is like it wasn't definitive, it wasn't an exclusive or excluding content. It was a comment. It was a very inclusive comment of saying like, we all can, but like, see what happened with Europe where it was a must from a societal perspective. So we can make it a must in our own lives.
So what is your, exactly.
Right.
What is your must?
And,
make it a must in your own life.
And how do you do it? This is so hard. It's so hard because for some people, it's like they never put themselves in this position. So it never is really a must. I had a conversation with a good friend back in Germany. He's like, man, if I just had like my back to the wall and it really was survival, and I'm like, man, there's war in Europe currently. It's like, how much worse does it have to get for you to really feel that it's a must? But like, I get it. It's like, it's like if it's not a must yet, if it has to get even worse, then let it get a bit worse, right? Yeah. I just always had probably the gift that like pretty early on, like my life turned pretty intense in terms of like the circumstances that I was living through. At least that's what it felt to me. So I was feeling that kind of back to the wall survival thing from age 18 onwards of like, okay, it's like, I cannot, I do not want to live this way. So either I end this or I end it in another way and in a better way, right? And so,
Yeah, man, not much more to say here. I would just end the episode. That was great, man. It was awesome talking to you. Everybody have a good rest of your week. Peace out.